Hello and welcome to BMA 258 Services Marketing. So in this week we'll be dealing with balancing productive capacity and demand. So the intended learning outcomes for this week are first of all to describe what is meant by productive capacity within a service context. Number two, explain and use capacity management techniques to meet variations in demand. Number three, explain and analyse patterns and determinants of demand for different customer segments. Number four, distinguish the different supply and demand situations that service firm with fixed capacity may face. Number five, identify the 5 basic demand management strategies and techniques. Number six, apply the marketing mix elements to reduce fluctuations in demand. Number seven, apply the psychology of waiting and its implementations for designing queuing systems. Number eight, describe the importance of reservation systems to inventory demand. So the first thing we've got to think about is how do we actually define productive capacity? And this refers to the resources or the assets that a firm can employ to create goods and services. So it's really about how much we are capable of producing in the market. But it's a little bit different within the service context because for goods we can store, inventorize our capacity, so we can make things and we can store it, but with services we can't. So when we talk about productive capacity within a service context, it means at that point of time in that place. So it's very situational specific. And I've got an example here of, say, a restaurant. There's some things you can prepare for at the restaurant, like you can maybe make the bread dough to put in the oven beforehand and stuff like that, but most of the food is cooked at that particular time. So it really depends on how many chefs you have available, how many cooks you have available to serve how many customers at that particular, like how many meals can you get, how many tables can you serve at that particular time in that particular restaurant. Alright, so productive capacity of a service organisation takes several forms. First of all, the physical facilities designed to contain customers and used for delivering people processing services or mental stimulus processing services such as in hotels and planes. So the physical facilities are designed for storing or processing goods that either belong to customers or are being offered to them for sale. For example, pipelines where you have gas going through or oil going through or water going through, and parking lots. So both of these are physical facilities, but the first ones contain customers and the next one is, not really containing, but processing and storing goods that belong to customers. So this is about the customers and this is about what customers own. The next one is physical equipment used to process people. Possessions or information includes a wide range of items that may be situation specific, such as a security detector. So when you go to the airport, that check if you have, things like metal detectors. It's reliant on how many of those you have. They're obviously expensive, and you need everyone to go through them, so people have to be processed through them. So our capacity of processing people through an airport is going to be limited by this physical equipment. Labour is a key element of productive capacity in all contact services or in, like high contact services, and maybe in low contact services, but especially high contact. Examples include restaurant servers and nurses. So if you're in a hospital, you might have, we often think of hospitals, it might seem a bit strange to some people to think of hospital as capacity and demand, but you can see that as, how much demand is there for the hospital services and what's the capability, what's the productive capacity for the hospital. But often that's measured in beds, how many beds and the hospitals have, because each patient needs to go to a bed, but the expense is not always in the building. Often there's parts of the hospital which aren't being used, or there's beds in the in storage that aren't being used. It's really the nurses and the doctors and the PCIs, like the staff, the medical staff that's needed to service each bed in that hospital. And then last of all, we have infrastructure. So many organisations are dependent on access to sufficient capacity in the public or private infrastructure. And this includes highways, like to drive along, and electricity. Electricity is a big one for us in Tasmania. In the Lowhead there, we've got some big industry there, which is their productive capacity is limited by the amount of electricity they can draw off the grid. And that's why we've got big substations and stuff there. All right, so that's productive capacity. So to manage productive capacity, we can do it in different ways. Either we can stretch our productive capacity, or we shrink it, so we can adapt it, right? So some capacity is elastic in its ability to absorb extra demand. Here, the actual level of the capacity remains unchanged, and more people are being served with the same level of capacity. And you think, well, how can that happen? But a good example of how you can stretch capacity is a train. So if you have a train with 40 seats and standing room for 60 people, right? So you say, well, the capacity of the train is 40, but you can stretch it a little bit by having some people, extra people, jump on the train and then standing up, right? So it's not the ideal or the capacity, but you can do it. And another example would be like a tutorial room or a workshop where you can say it's ideally set up for 20 students, but if an extra 4 students roll up, we can sort of stretch it in there. And it's like that with seminars and all these different types of things. We can also adjust the capacity to match the demand. So this set of options involves tailoring the overall level of capacity to match the variations in demand. And this strategy is known as chasing demand. An example is to hire part-time workers. So you go, well, we know it's going to be busy at certain times. So within like the busy season, we're going to put on extra part-time workers. And this is actually a really good strategy. It doesn't get used much because the way that we've traditionally developed our markets in Australia is that we try and give people full-time work. Now it's becoming like a lot of people have more than one job, or they'll work part-time for one job and part-time for another job. And also a really excellent resource which is sort of starting to get utilised more is university students. So you might be a full-time student, but you can do a part-time job in a marketing agency when they get busy. So that's managing our capacity. Other ways are to schedule downtime during periods of low demand, and a really good example of that is during the ski season. So at Ben Lomond, when it's snowing, obviously there's going to be a large demand, like high demand for the services that they provide up there. But in summer, there's going to be low demand. So if you're going to fix the lifts and stuff like that, or fix your infrastructure or facilities and stuff like that, you don't do it in winter when there's lots of snow. You do it in summer when there's hardly anyone up there. You can also cross-train employees, and this has multiple benefits. First of all, it helps us manage capacity, but also it's good for the employees because if you get trained in different roles, your job becomes more diverse, and it often becomes more enjoyable too. So this would be something like, just say you have at a restaurant, you'll train one person to serve, but you also have you go, well, you've been a server for a while, would you like to learn how to do the cooking preparation and stuff like that as well? So that's just a simple example. A lot of it's where you get front line staff, and you train them in the back, the behind the stage stuff as well. And the other good thing about the cross-training employees is that if different employees know how to do different roles, then they can understand the perspectives, and it often helps the process. And when we do our service blueprinting, it helps us identify and smooth out errors in that. Use part-time employees, which we've already talked about. Invite customers to perform self-service. Now, this might sound a little bit crazy at first. You go, well, why would customers want to be involved in providing service to themselves? But it turns out a lot of customers actually do like that, and it's called co-production of value. And it's not for everything. So if the hairdresser comes up to me and goes, oh, would you like to, help cut your own hair? You'd be like, well, how can it doesn't make sense, right? But there are some things I could do, like for some services that I'd like to be involved in myself as well. And self-service technologies are becoming more and more. We look at that, the checkouts and the ordering and designing, like for some fashion accessories, you can, like for shoes or for shirts and stuff like that, you can actually design your own products as well. So high customization in that, which is also involved in the co-production of value. Ask customers to share. So in the services that you provide for them. You might be going, well, would you like Uber's a good one there. You jump in the Uber, you're going from one place to another one, you go, would you like to share your ride with another one? And indeed, Uber actually has that option now. You can do the ride share thing. Create flexible capacity, which is obviously really good. So that's one way to manage capacity. We talked before about, just going to go back a slide here, about stretching and shrinking, and that's kind of the idea of that flexible capacity. Rent or share extra facilities and equipment. So if you know that you're going to be in the busy season, we talked about using part-time employees, but you can also hire extra facilities for that as well. All right, now I'm going to leave it there. In the next section, we will be dealing with some more strategies in the psychology of waiting.